So for today, one of the things that intrigued me that I thought would make an interesting class discussion is our gospel reading from the lectionary today is from Matthew 11. I want to read it again. It was read during the service earlier. But it's an interesting pick to me. Sometimes I'm, a little bit beside myself going, which of the lectionary texts do I want to talk about for the meditation? This one would have been interesting as well. So it's Matthew 11. We're going to read 16 through 19, and then jump down and read 25 through 30. And one of the questions I want to ask is, because the quality of our reading has everything to do with the questions we are asking. You ask poor questions, you'll get answers. There'll be poor answers. The quality of the question you ask, right?
There's one thing, the dumb looks are still free.
So what I'm thinking about is, in a text like this, it's easy to think this is a bunch of random statements that have just been cobbled together and thrown at us, and there doesn't seem to be any flow to them. And I understand how it could be seen that way. In my translation, there's some breaks there. But what I want us to do is look at this text, and is there a flow? And the lectionary, which we don't know who came up with that. We know people were doing these readings, maybe not, but they had a format of a schedule of readings going back into 3rd, 4th century, at least, right? This is not a Johnny-come-lately thing. Oh, let's have a lectionary, and each Sunday we read a particular passage. No, this is ancient. We don't know who came up with it. But it's always intriguing to me, what were they thinking when they picked these readings, put different readings together, and arranged them as they did. So they leave out the middle section here, but they take the first part, 16 through 19, and then jump down 25 through 30. So let's read it, and let's look for how we might understand it. Starting at 16. But to what shall I compare this generation? It is like children sitting in the marketplaces who call out to other children and say, we played the flute for you, and you did not dance. We sang a dirge, and you did not mourn. For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say he has a demon. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, behold, a gluttonous man and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. Yet wisdom is vindicated by her deeds. Now 25. At that time Jesus said, I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, that you have hidden these things from the wise and intelligent and have revealed them to infants. Yes, Father, for this way was well-pleasing in your sight. All things have been handed over to me by my Father, and no one knows the Son except the Father, nor does anyone know the Father except the Son, and anyone to whom the Son wills to reveal him. Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So I'm going to make the assumption that Matthew is intentionally putting these texts, these sayings together, that he's arranging them with intent and purpose. And they're not just like, I think I'll throw one thing out, and then I think I'll throw something else out. And just he's being random. No, I'm going to make the assumption he's being very intentional. Doesn't mean that these statements were all said by Jesus in the same moment, but he's arranging them this way. Maybe Jesus said one thing right after the other in this fashion, but even if not, Matthew decides, I'm going to arrange them this way, right? So, we got two distinct sections. First, this little comparison to a children's game, and then his application, and then the statement at the end, yet wisdom is vindicated by her deeds, and then skips over a little bit there about Sodom and Gomorrah and cities of Israel, and then the last part. Okay, any thoughts about overarching themes or connections or questions about how we can find the connections?
An initial resistance to God and John, Jesus and John.
Okay, so the analogy is of the children's game, and I'm assuming this is a very familiar children's game, that when he references it, everyone knows the little game. Oh yeah, that's, back and forth, kids do this. And then it's kind of like his, farming parables. Everyone knows, or sheep herding, everyone knows what that is. This is a children's game everyone's familiar with, but he sees in it a kind of reality. And yeah, they resisted both Jesus and John. And so his point is, what?
Well, and then it's juxtaposed with the latter part, right?
Right, yes.
Come to me, now that you've seen the
Yeah.
heart of God, right?
Yeah, so the thing is, neither John nor myself can make you happy. No matter what you get, you refuse it, right? You're refusing. And I like, yeah, and the last part's an invitation to come. So there's a connection, right? The little ditty game, the children's game back and forth in the marketplace, it's related to what follows because it's about you're not coming. Even the little children's game is you won't respond. The last part is the invitation to respond. So there's a connection where it's not just like random, totally random, right? Jim?
One of the ways I might put this in a sentence is your behavior is incongruous with the setting. If you're playing funeral, go ahead and cry. Playing wedding, go ahead and dance. If Jesus or John are preaching, listen. But the phrase wisdom is proved right, I would rephrase that to today by it doesn't smell or it does pass
The smell
test.
Yeah. And whose wisdom is it, right? Is it talking about God's wisdom, or is it talking about you'll be proven to be a person of wisdom by again, that's not defined. You're kind of left to wonder, is this the wisdom of God? Both through Jesus and John will ultimately be proved to be vindicated, right? Or is it like your wisdom will be ultimately evidenced by whether you respond or not? Open to either one. Daryl?
I'm just going to notice, at least it appears to me anyhow, in some respects, the fact that it's hidden is it's intentional.
Yes.
And the point of the last part is that it's through the process of going through this with God and Jesus and his ministry that the truth of it is revealed.
Okay. Yeah. So because the way our reading was set out, leaving out that center point so that you read wisdom is vindicated by her deeds, and then the very next statement is Jesus praising the Father that he has chosen to do things in this kind of hidden manner. So there's something about this hiddenness that Jesus declares to be of extreme value. Like, this is great that and we would be thinking, why would you make it difficult? Why would you hide it, right? So our reaction might be, why didn't God just make it obvious? I like your suggestion. There's some real benefit in the process so that you have to dig for it a little bit. And maybe that's for our own good. Is certainly one way in which to read Jesus praising the Father for hiding it in some respects. Other thoughts?
In the first section, it seems to me that he's kind of referring to another passage that says, do not judge. Because everybody's making a judgment about John, and then they make a judgment about Jesus. And And that's just another example of do not judge.
Right. And I was just thinking after Daryl said that is, and what John and Jesus had was in some ways hidden. They missed it. You know, that hiddenness. So, yeah, so they judged it to be, well, John's this way and Jesus is that way, and they missed it, and maybe that praise, but there's Jesus is saying there's value in the fact that it's not immediately evident, and you can miss it. You can think, well, this John guy is just a crazy lunatic, you know, so strange. Of course, he's not really. He's acting like a prophet. And you miss that point. You know, you missed his prophetic persona. That was prophet, has prophet written all over it. So is it a kind of a willful missing it? So, yeah, maybe the hiddenness has to do with the essence of what John is doing and what Jesus is doing is somewhat hidden, and they're distracted by the exterior, like John's behavior and Jesus's behavior, and they're missing what's hidden. Is he saying that? I mean, I'm raising questions, right?
It seems like they're seeing with their eyes, but they're not hearing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It evokes all those. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. You know, if you have eyes to see, really see. Yeah. That kind of like the judging. They're seeing something very obvious, and they're missing something less obvious that quote unquote is hidden because they're not really hearing with their ears. That would be a good way to put it.
Well, in verse 25,
Mm-hmm.
where Jesus says, "You've hidden these things from the wise and prudent, and have revealed them unto babes." So who was getting Jesus somewhat was the disciples.
Yeah.
You know, and they were humble people. But the people that were supposed to know things like the scribes and Pharisees, they
They're
weren't getting it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The sophisticated,
right,
or at least sophisticated in their own minds.
right. Intelligent, scholarly folks missed it completely.
Right. Because there's a lack perhaps of openness to something
Right.
happening in an unexpected manner.
When you think you know everything, then it's hard to accept something that's
Yeah, I was having a conversation with my daughter this weekend, and we were talking about who we find common ground with, and it's less about their actual beliefs or disbeliefs. It has more to do with their attitude of openness versus not open. Someone who totally lands on things different than me, but they're open, I feel more camaraderie with that person than someone who actually believes a lot of the things I believe, but is absolutely certain of it and is not open to considering anything else. I'm like, you might be believing some of the same things, but we have very little in common. Where I have a lot in common with someone who articulates a worldview very different from mine, but if they're open, we're on the same page because we're both open to. I had a great friend in Tanzania, an Australian gentleman, who would say God has more light yet to shine from His Word. It was that orientation of you don't know yet what you're going to see, and it was a beautiful way of putting it, right? So, yeah. So the sophisticated people who have all the answers have already worked it all out. They can't see either in John or Jesus what God is doing. And Jesus seems to be saying it's the wisdom of God that has chosen to reveal it to the unsophisticated, maybe you read open and willing, as opposed to those who already have it all fixed in their minds. That'd be one way to read it.
I've also heard them call it the ruling class.
Mm.
Seem to have all the answers that want to tell you how things should be going, that they don't want to listen to they can not be right.
Yeah.
I found it to be very effective if I can just find one thing to connect with somebody on.
Mm.
I had a patient one time who, obviously, she had, this was when I was in palliative care, and she obviously was kind of a trashy person, and I didn't respect her much, and she was dying of cancer of the cervix. And she woke up one day and she looked at me and she said, "What's today?" And I said, "It's August the 3rd. And she said, "Oh no, I gotta get out of here. I gotta get shoes for my babies before they start school." And I thought, she's a mom. I'm a mom.
Hmm.
You know, we have that in common. We have one thing in common that I could relate to her with that. It was one thread of a connection.
Hmm.
I found out that that's, if you have one thread of a connection with somebody, you can have a dialogue. So that was a good lesson to me.
Greg, you may be going there, Greg, but.
I don't know where I'm going.
Oh.
I have some semblance of an idea.
I mean, and not only.
But you're open to change.
Not only the conversation with Adrian on finding common ground with other people, but, I would posit that it's really that's the posture we want with God, right? That's the divine life, is the openness, humility, corporate speak calls it what? Growth, what is it? Growth educators.
Growth mindset.
Thank you, growth mindset. Everybody's got their little,
Yeah.
cliches for it, but it's such a posture of humility. But is there a pill you can take for that, or
Mhm.
give that to some? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Do you have any reflections on what is that a genetic predisposition, a psychological predisposition, a spiritual, or yes, or
Or it could be part of ego.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure.
Yeah,
But
it's probably related to all those things. As Francois Fellon wrote to whoever it was he was counseling, he said, be thankful for, in his second spiritual letters, or 50 spiritual letters, if you never read that, it's a great little book. They're short. But in his second one, I think he says, oh, the fact that you've been humiliated is so good, it makes you teachable. This is someone who's like, I've been so humiliated. We don't know what happened, right? But somehow they've been publicly or whatever, absolutely humiliated. And he's like, oh, this is good. Now you'll be teachable. Which is that same thing. It's failure. It's humiliation. Something has to happen to shake us of our confidence and make us open to, well, maybe there's a different way, maybe there's a better way, maybe I don't have all the answers. Success is not a good teacher. Failure is always a good teacher, but nobody wants failure. Everyone wants success.
What's that little thing that, who the gods would destroy, give 40 years of success or something like that?
Growth mindset.
I'm reminded of scripture in James. It says, listen, my dear brothers and sisters, has not God chosen those who are poor in the eyes of the world to be rich in faith and to inherit the kingdom He promised to those who love Him? And for me, it's the idea, when we think of poor, we think of people just without. They don't have a job, they struggle to put food where they live. And we're so much not like that in many ways. But it's when you rub elbows with them, though, and you, I went to eat a while ago, and I was talking to the server, and she talked about that at the place she works, she doesn't get paid a salary. She just has to live on the tips. And so if she has one customer come in the hour, it's whatever that customer left as a tip. And I thought, that's unfair, all that comes. But it's in understanding their plight and trying to connect. I think that where we find we're teachable, where we find that we're closer to the kingdom, and there are people like that around us that I think need to inspire us,
Yeah.
so that we can be rich in faith.
Yeah, there can be many ways of being poor that are not just about material abundance or lack thereof. To be poor in spirit, as Matthew tells the Beatitude. Now Luke's version is just blessed are the poor and woe to you who are rich. He doesn't say what kind of poverty, but yeah, there's a lot of forms of being poor. We would, want to be poor in terms of certainty, right? When it comes to certainty, I'm very poor. I'm certain about nothing. I'm confident God is certain about everything, but I am open to correction on anything, right? That kind of poverty as a posture then makes us teachable. And so maybe that's a little bit the infants here, right? Derek?
Just, this all reminds me of Rachel talking about the faith of the people in Honduras.
Hmm.
And for those, probably everyone was here, but I thought it was honest of her to admit that they have faith. She recognizes in them a depth of faith that she can't access because of their situation and their dependence on each other and on God. That is so moment to moment. And I think that's why we need to go there, not so much to build them houses, but to see, how things really are. I think
Yeah.
so
We leave them some houses,
we
they
can
give us
benefit
greater
from the
gifts.
poverty and exploit that a little bit.
Yeah, they give greater gifts to us probably than what we leave for them. But that's good. We could leave that, but we can leave with greater gifts.
Don't you
Right.
think a lack of resources does help you rely on God?
Sure, absolutely. I remember when we started as a group 20-some years ago, I remember someone saying, well, as a church, well, we've determined not to own a building because that always becomes the tail that wags the dog. And so this is going to be living kind of much more moment by moment, isn't it? Because when you got a building, you've got some sort of, you've got a place. We're always going to be, if we're always renting your own, as happened up the street, the landlord can say, decided to not continue your lease. We started scrambling, where else are we going to meet? Where are we going to go?
When you start having to rely on God, it's tough.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, we're, and as a congregation, we're always 6 months away from insolvency. That's what Chris Lowry reminds me of because he manages the finances. He's like, well, we've got about 6 months we can pay the bills. And after that, it's all insolvent.
It's all up to God, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, but,
Boy, we're really in good shape.
right, but the point being, to your point is, it changes your mindset when you can't look to that and go, oh, but I got this in the bag. This is steady. If everything's a little dicey, a little bit questionable, whew, you're living
I
different.
remember in those early years, you said, I'm not gonna just keep beating the drum to stay alive. If God wants to kill this, we'll quit.
Yeah, I adapted the phrase, he who would lose his life will save it, but he who would save, I adapted it to the church. The church that tries to save its life will lose it, but the church that is willing to lose its life for his sake will find it.
Amen.
So we're trying to be a church that's losing our own life. Like we're not doing anything to prop up our own existence. We're not hammering on the contributions or anything. You never hear, But why is that? That's because I'm convinced once that becomes a focus, we will lose our life as a church. Now, we might continue on as a group that actually is better funded or whatever. Not that we're poorly funded. But you know what I'm saying? Once you do that, you switch. You become focused on the things that don't matter. So we've always tried to live a little dangerously on the edge of
My TV show was a good idea.
You think what?
TV show.
We didn't know about that.
TV.
TV evangelist.
Well, I used to do that for Jerry Jenkins.
No, we used to kid about making a reality show.
Oh.
Putting cameras around the building with Bill and different people. You could probably have a good reality show.
I watched that.
Yeah. And back when we had like 7 guys staying here, it would be adventure all the time.
When we had a guy die in the church and the police came, I think that was a good scene.
Be an interesting episode.
It was a missed opportunity for that reality show.
Yeah. Actually, the police came in last week. The doors were not all locked, and they came in and talked to the gentleman here. Yeah. But to the point is, when you live that, if you embrace that kind of living, it's got to create a different kind of confidence in God. Is Jesus getting at something like that too? About this statement, God, you've chosen to reveal it not to the wise, not to the powerful, not to the intelligent, but to those on the bottom, the least, the powerless, the quote-unquote infants. And there's a lot of ways to take infants.
Greg, I like the things that you've just mentioned as kind of almost the pillars of how you want to, hey, let's create this church and let's use these as the foundation pieces. Because it's so easy to lose sight. How long does it take us to, get so comfortable and lose sight of what it is, when we think of our own personal history of when you first got married, what was that like? And then time goes on and things change and so forth. So that reminder is just good.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we see I think we're seeing some connection between that first part, which is this analogy of you can't be pleased no matter what we do, but yet the wisdom's hidden here within. And that's the second part starts to unpack that a little bit more. There's wisdom that's going to be proven in how things come out, right? And so then the second part starts with this declaration of this is in fact God's design. It's not an accident. God opposes the proud, to quote James again, but gives grace to the humble, right? He resists the proud, but he gives grace to the humble because they're teachable. It creates a teachable spirit. But let's look internal to the 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. That section. What do you think about 27? All things have been handed over to me by my Father, and no one knows the Son except the Father, nor does anyone know the Father except the Son, and anyone to whom the Son wills to reveal him. And so what does that ending phrase point us towards? To whom does Jesus choose to reveal?
I'm assuming all.
Well, yes, all, but I think on certain terms, right?
But wouldn't it be more the Spirit than the Son that's doing the revealing? I mean,
Well, right. A pneumatology, a theology of the Spirit would include the revelatory, enlightening kind of activity, which that just points to a kind of Trinitarian understanding is, couldn't we also talk about the Father revealing, and couldn't we say, yes, the Father, well, how does the Father reveal? Well, the Father reveals by sending the Son incarnate into the world that he might be revealed, and the Son reveals the Father. And then we could say, and so how does the Son reveal? Yes. And we think, well, that's the Spirit dwelling within us enlightens, enlivens, So yeah. But here, the statement is about the Son. Jesus saying the Son chooses to reveal.
Isn't that contradicting himself? Earlier he said the Father was the one who had graciously willed to reveal things to little children, but then below it's the Son who chooses, not the Father.
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, if we're not Trinitarian in our thinking, if we're not embracing the mystery of the reality of Father, Son, and Spirit, then yeah, at that point we go, wait a minute, which is it, this or that? Yeah, so it is the Father who's revealing, and Jesus then says, and he's choosing to do it through me, and then Ken's right, well, how does Jesus ultimately do it? Well, that's through the Spirit that he sends, but how do we get to whom he chooses to reveal it?
I think it comes right after those who are weary, those who are burdened.
Yes.
Those who seek rest.
Yeah.
The gentle, the humble of heart.
Yeah, because immediately what Jesus says is, so come. So who does he choose to reveal it to? Absolutely everyone. But you got to come on his terms, not mine. I spent so long in my life, well into my early 30s, wanting God to come to me on my terms. And it was a sincere wish. It's like, God, makes sense to me. God, make yourself known to me. But I came to realize it was I wanted it on my terms. And at the point of where I finally said, okay, if you, that's up to you. I no longer demand it be on my terms. Lo and behold, he showed up in a more impactful way than he'd ever had in my life. But that's because I quit trying to control the way in which God needed to manifest himself to satisfy mainly my brain. Like, make yourself sensible to me in my head.
You had the box and God just wouldn't get in.
Yeah, and I realized, exactly, and it was so good. He's like, as soon as because I'm thinking, okay, what you're doing is as soon as you get in that box, you're putting me more in control of the situation. And that's my problem, is I'm trying to control the situation already. That's why I want to understand you in understandable terms, right? Is because I want to have control. And when I quit trying to insist that God get in the box and come to me on my terms, it's like, okay. So that's what I think the connection is between 27 and 28. Exactly what Mike said. He says, to anyone the Son chooses to reveal. And then what is it? Will they come to me? Yes, in these ways, humble, beat down, struggling. That's who I reveal it to. I'm willing to reveal it to anyone. But if you come haughty, confident, already certain, that's, I'm not going to reveal it. I'm not going to reveal the Father as long as you're in that modality of your own self.
But it takes seeking, right?
Yeah.
So those who've got it all figured out and feel confident in themselves don't seek.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. This come to me out of your brokenness, not out of your righteousness and clarity and, confidence. It's come to me and I give you rest. Now, who's he willing to give rest to? Absolutely everyone. But he can only give rest to those who actually want rest. Right? He can't give rest to me if I'm not really wanting rest. Okay, Daryl, you had a...
I think it just escaped me. Keep going.
I didn't...
Hang on to those thoughts.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it'll be great later on.
Okay. Cobby's up next.
Just quickly, just the same thing, and I'd love for a different slant in Psalm 95,
Okay.
where it talks about, come, let's worship and bow down, kneel before the Lord our Maker, He is our God. Today, if you would hear His voice, what do you do? Harden not your heart. So that's similar.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, the bowing down, the kneeling. It's not just a physical posture. It's a whole putting yourself.
Open your heart.
Yeah, opening it, making yourself humble before God. And to my point about my own experience in life is, and it was for my good that God resisted, that He remained hidden as long as I wanted it on my terms. That was beneficial, because the last thing I need to think, because I'm already thinking I'm really at the center of things, is for God to confirm that by then responding to me in the way I demand. That just made me more of an egotistical student, which is what I was, right? I knew better than all my professors, or so I thought. It would have just confirmed me in that. I needed to be absolutely humble, right? And finally surrender and say, okay, if you exist, which I'm still not sure of, you're going to have to show it because I cannot figure it out, right? I got nothing here, God, right? If you're here.
And God finally says, oh, good,
Yeah.
somebody I can
Yeah,
work with.
finally, I've been waiting all these years for you just to quit trying to drive this thing,
Right.
right? So that's how I hear this, right? Yes, Daryl's right. He is not restricting that revelation from anyone based on some arbitrary, I pick you, not you. No. He reveals the Father to everyone and anyone who wants that revelation. But if you don't want it, harden not your heart. If you harden your heart, God will just patiently in love wait for you to finally give up. My advice is always surrender early. It goes better, right? You will come to the one who is your maker. You can either come easily or harder. You can take a short path or a long path. Do believe you will end up back there, because he is the Alpha and the Omega. He is the Alpha, he is the source of our coming into being, and he is the Omega. He is that to which my being is directed. I will end up back with God one way or the other.
But thank God he's pursuing us.
Right. And I get to choose that intermediate journey, right? That's a lot of my choosing, how stubborn or how open I am, something like that. So maybe the last parts that are so famous, we'll stop because we're going to eat 28 through 30, this beautiful appeal to come and receive rest and the light burden. That then becomes how God manifests his own presence and goodness to us when we surrender to absolutely everyone without, God is no respecter of persons. There's no partiality. It is open for everyone. But it's always on the terms of, you got to have ears to hear. You got to be open.
Greg, why is, and you will find rest for your souls in capitalized?
It's a quote.
Oh,
Yeah, if you've got a translation that puts, like mine puts it in all caps, where it's a quote, and I forget where it's from, and it's actually pretty good to go look there, because then when you get, I think it might be in Jeremiah, I forgot where it is.
6:16.
Where?
6:16, Jeremiah.
Jeremiah, okay. You go read what is occurring, because Jesus is quoting something, you will find rest for your souls. Who was Jeremiah talking about? What was that rest? And it escapes me at the moment, so at least I remember it was Jeremiah. So you look there, we don't have time. It really helps you fill it out. Oh, he's pulling back to an old prophecy about finding rest. And your soul is not a platonic soul. It's not that spark of eternity which is in you that you don't want to lose. Your soul is who you are in the depth of your being. You are a soul. C.S. Lewis's famous quote, you don't have a soul, you are a soul, you have a body. Right? So you will find rest into your souls is you will find rest for the deepest, truest who you are. Right? All right. Well, we'll stop here for today. Hope you can stay for our meal. Have a blessed week.